the shocking truth. There is no Black Lives Matter. There's no BLM. Like, how can this monkey be walking with this white woman? Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel, AfroLev, roaring truths to preserve your pretty voice. We're not keeping it 100 today, we're keeping it 1,000 as we have hit 1,000 subscribers. Thank you so much. I appreciate the support. If you would like to continue to support the channel, share this, comment, tell your friends, tell your mother, tell your brothers, tell everybody, and we can continue to grow and I can keep on pumping out more content. I'm not asking for much, just for a subscription or perhaps a comment. Tell me what you think. Let's chop it up. Thank you once again for 1,000 subscribers. Now, today we are going to be speaking about being Black in Russia, the shocking truth of being a Black man in Russia. It sounds awfully dramatic, honestly, but it's not as dramatic as one might think. Right, I'm going to get straight into it. I'm not really going to have any structure. I am just going to speak from the heart and I'm going to express my opinions, what I think from my personal experience, because I'm not going to speak for Black people as a whole. I do not believe in this idea of collectivism by sort of projecting my feelings onto a whole race, because every Black person has their own struggle and I'm not going to do that. But I will tell you how it is to be a Black person in Russia based on my experience. The first thing, I have noticed that Russian people, for me at least, do not heckle me in public. I haven't experienced situations that I have in other countries. I've lived in various countries, even my own, you know, when you are subjected to people saying things in public that can be extremely offensive. But in Russia, I have not encountered people walking up to me and making me feel uncomfortable. I have not encountered that yet. Although when I have experienced racism, it is from other foreigners, which is funny because sometimes if I'm walking with my wife or if I'm walking with an interviewee and she just happens to be white, it's more of a bitterness thing. Like, how can this monkey be walking with this white woman? Such a disgusting sight. And this is from other foreigners, which is quite ironic, to be honest. Other foreigners are disgusted by my presence, but the Russian people have no time to gaze upon me. I live in Moscow. The pace is way too quick. For you to just slow down and look at a Black person and make them feel uncomfortable, you have an awfully large amount of time because Moscow is pretty quick. I'm not so sure about the other parts of Russia, the villages and other places like that. But in Moscow, generally, I do not receive weird, dirty, disgusted looks unless it's another foreigner. So the racism that I have experienced, or the words or slurs that I've heard in the background, they did not come from Russian people. They came from other foreigners, which is quite ironic. I think I'll have to make a video about elitism later in the future. But long story short, in terms of being in public, I am not encountering that strange phenomenon when it's like you are sort of regarded as an animal in public, unless it's coming from other foreigners. Now, it is also very important to say this, that perhaps I am lucky, or I have not looked down the barrel of the beast, or the bowels of the beast, or I haven't sort of found a place that is very discriminatory to Black people. But based on my experience, Russia is pretty nice in terms of how it has treated me. I've been to a few other cities, one or two, and I also have not received the same terrible, discriminatory, inflammatory statements that I have in other countries. Although people might have their own opinions on that. But one important thing to mention, if you are somebody that comes from a place that had or has police brutality. You're not going to experience that in the middle of Russia. That doesn't work. A policeman is not going to profile you for being black, and they're not going to throw you to the sidewalk and put their knee on your neck and suffocate you to death. No. The chances of that happening are very low. People are generally regarded the same when it comes to the law. There is no favoritism. You are basically at the mercy of the law. And I respect that because I do not like being profiled. Profiling, especially if it comes from the government or the law, it leaves you in a situation when it's just like you just exist and your existence is a mistake. But in Russia, in terms of the government, I am 100% sure that you are not discriminated based on the color of your skin. So that is very nice for a black person because you can be pretty comfortable and sure that you're not going to be treated terribly just because you are black. And this is coming from somebody who is black. I've been in and out of the country and I've never been profiled just because I am black or I look like this. I'm treated normally. Even in situations when I'm going to the subway, I'm not searched. Other foreigners are searched, because they might suspect them of something. I'm not searched. Black people are not looked at as these criminal-like beings. The Russian government and the police in general are not threatened by our appearance. We just basically walk through places. We might get searched, of course, if we're carrying a bag or something. But there's no profiling he's black, so he must be a danger to society. No, it's not like that, which I find pretty comfortable. In terms of the family unit, I feel extremely comfortable. My family is white. My wife is white. Do they make me feel uncomfortable? No. In fact, I'm going to say something very controversial. They treat me better than my own people. Yes, they welcomed me into their home. They treat me well. Her mother always gets me gifts. She's very kind to me. She's very sweet. She cares about my well-being, and she treats me like a human being. She even encourages me. She wants me to be better. She tries to speak Russian with me. She speaks English when I don't understand. There's no weird feeling of me having to change myself. I am myself, and I'm not profiled. They don't treat me a certain way because I'm black. They're not scared to say certain things because I'm black. They treat me like a person. And a lot of people thought that maybe my wife's family would reject me as a black man, but she treats me exactly like any other man that would have rather married her daughter. And that is absolute class because we are treated as humans here. And I think a large reason or a big reason for why black people are treated as normal, or perhaps they are not sort of overhyped to the extent that everybody needs to watch every little thing that they say, is because there is no Black Lives Matter here. There is no Black Lives Matter. There's no BLM. And I am quite happy that there is no BLM. And I'll tell you why. This might be controversial and people might call me a coon or whatever you want to call it. But I feel like Black Lives Matter has reached an extent where it's not for the people anymore. It's pushing a certain agenda. It has become political to the point that funds and various things are used to promote and project things that weren't the initial thing or things that we wanted to achieve. And it's funny that I'm even saying wanted to achieve, as if I'm a part of it just because I'm black. But this was strictly an American phenomenon. Everybody has their own problems in their country, but then every single black person was forced, or not forced, or encouraged to participate in this Black Lives Matter thing, when it's like we have things that are specifically troublesome in our country. So we were worried about something happening in a separate country when there are different movements we could create in our own countries to sort of help that and benefit our people. Of course, in the beginning, Black Lives Matter was very impressive. Everybody had this thing of okay, black people are worthy of respect. Cool. But then it became sort of this elitism thing when it's just now people have to apologize for being white, or people have to somehow feel bad for slavery, even though they weren't around there. Every white person should feel absolutely terrible because they had a hand in it. No, that's when the movement becomes garbage. But I digress. There is no Black Lives Matter in Russia. simply because the country is way too vast to be concerned with the color of your skin. A lot of people, including me, thought or think that Russia is purely Slavic people, white people with blue eyes, and that's it. That is not the case. You have so many ethnicities here to the point that you looking different is not even that important. I'll say that again. There are so many ethnicities here, not just Slavic people. You have Tatars, you have people from the Caucasus, you have different individuals that look different. And all of them, listen carefully, are called Russians. It's not this Caucasus Russian, this Tatar Russian, they are called Russians. So here am I even feeling quite ignorant because I came to Russia and I was like, oh, there's a foreigner. And my wife is like, no, that's a Russian. Oh, but they don't look Russian. How do Russians look? You know, they don't look Russian. No, there are different ethnicities. And Russia is combined to the extent that you have Muslims and Christians in the same country, and they're all regarded as Russian. Yes. So it's one of those things when it's just like there are too many types of people in one country. Why should we even care about the color of their skin? Of course, there are people that sour the taste in your mouth. There are always those people that ruin the perception of a country because, let me be very honest with you, there are racist people everywhere, even in my country. My country has a lot of racist people. I am from Zimbabwe, but I was born in Botswana. We've had many tourists coming in. We have many white people there. We can also be extremely racist and say some of the most nasty things. But of course, it is not looked at as terrible just because we are African and we had it worse in the past. So everything is just justified. But racism, it exists everywhere. There is no different form of racism. It is consistent and it follows every single race in every single society. But from the racism which I have experienced, as I have said, it has come from other foreigners and it also came online. Of course, online, you don't know who's behind the keyboard. I'm pretty sure some Russian people, some Ukrainian people, different people, of course, they put it they put down the comment inkwell, right? Which basically is a slur. Not insulting me, but insulting my wife because she chose to marry a black man. We all know what an inkwell is, yes? That little container where you keep an ink pen. It carries the ink. I'm guessing it's a play on the fact that the pen becomes smothered with ink and it is covered in black. So it's like this whole thing, this container. I don't want to get explicit, but I think you know what I'm talking about. I get those comments sometimes, but it's coming from people that are typing things on the internet. The internet is not a real place. I'm not really concerned about what people say or write about on the internet because I'm from a place where it's just like if you want to handle something, you say it or you handle it face to face. So if somebody has a problem with me, I only find it to be something that is worth pursuing if we are face to face and you actually want to square up with me. Or you say this to me, hey, your wife is an inkwell. And then I'm like, okay, now we're going to scrap up, you know? But if it is something online, I'm like, meh, okay, keyboard warrior. So there is racism. Let's not discount that. But I have never encountered it in person. And I hope that I will never encounter it in person, you know? And if I do, I feel like I am not so vulnerable to these comments because I have experienced a lot of it. And I feel like words are not really things that carry that much weight unless we start to get physical after these words are said. But as I digress, it is important to understand that Black Lives Matter does not exist here. It sounds like a counterpoint, and I used to get so pissed off when people would say Black Lives Matter, and then people say all lives matter, because it was almost like a counterproductive argument. But I have come to the extent when it's just like, if we did not focus on the color of our skin like Russia, and we concentrated on being people from the same country, people from the same continent, we wouldn't be so aggressive and we would not have segmentation, because all of these organizations and all of these things are designed to separate us. In turn, Black Lives Matter has been functioning properly when it came to the first few years of its creation. But later, it became a form of segregation. It basically became the thing that we all feared it would be. Because now you have people who have white guilt, which is an absolutely ridiculous thing for people that are not racist. And now white people have to pay, what is it, black tax? What is it now? I hear there's this thing when it's like every white person needs to feel bad for what happened to black people. Look, I have friends that are even afraid to call me black. I am black. Call me what I am. And I love Russia because people are not sensitive about this. They are straight to the point. If you're black, you're black. If you're white, you're white. You should not get offended if you're like, this black guy did this. Of course, if you are singled out just because of your race, then there's a problem. That person is racist. But if you are a black person and the police report is like, this black person, oh, not this black person, I'm being counterproductive. A black man did this and did that. You are black. We have become so hypersensitive that our countries have crumbled because of things that are supposed to be classified as movements to benefit us. They have turned into the destruction of our own countries. So in Russia, I love the fact that people are not concerned with these things. We all coexist and we just survive in the country where all of us are trying to accomplish the same thing. Is there racism? Yes. Is it in abundance? Not to my recollection. I've not experienced things that have made me feel like I want to leave this country. It is not the same. I've lived in various countries. I've lived in China. I've experienced extreme racism, but I've also lived in other cities in China, and I have felt quite nice. You see, because every single place has its own version of racism, and it has its own annoying people that ruin the perception of the good people. So, in short, racism is rampant in every corner of the world. But I feel like in Russia, you are sort of given a chance to be a normal person because you are not given these falsified narratives of somehow being special because you're black or somehow being special because you are white. You are basically under the law and under the government regarded as an individual, an expat, a person that has come from abroad, and you are treated the exact way that you should be treated by your character, not the color of your skin. And it might seem like something that is almost impossible, but this happens in terms of being ridiculed just for the color of your skin in different places. You will not be ridiculed in Russia for the color of your skin. I'm speaking from the black point of view. I do not know about other races. I am not qualified to speak about other races. But for me, at least, let me say it again. For me personally, I do not feel like I'm ridiculed for the color of my skin. So, long story short, I feel like this is one of the places you can thrive because you are given freedom to move. But don't come to Russia with the same mentality that you are somehow special because you're black, or people are going to be hypersensitive just because you're black. Don't do that. Because I feel like the West tricks you into thinking that just because of the color of your skin, you are somehow given a certain edge, or you are somehow, ruined in the sense that your chances are lowered largely because of the color of your skin. There's no hierarchy of skin color here. There are qualifications that you must have. There are certain things, maybe nationalities, of course, because some countries have more benefits than the other. But you're not going to come to Russia and feel like you are insignificant or you are more than just because you are light-skinned or not. Russian people are not even regarded as white in Europe, which also really confused me. Slavic people are not considered as white in Europe. Other countries look down upon Slavic people because they don't classify them as white. Oh, he's not white, he's Slavic. Even during the Nazi regime, Slavic people were not placed in the category of what Hitler classified as white. You see what I mean? So we are in Russia here, surrounded by Slavic people, surrounded by Chechens, people from the Caucasus, surrounded by people from different parts of Russia. Russia's pretty vast, and every single person is regarded as Russian. Yes, of course, you do have these little things. Of course, I'm sure that if I really dig into it, maybe there are these classifications of what is white and what is not. We can dive into Slavic, tribal, whatever lism later in other videos. But in terms of being African in Russia, I suggest that it is a place that a lot of people should come to because you can have time to thrive and you don't have to be carried by the perceptions of what you think a black person is regarded as because people just give you room to move. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, and as always, we are Roaring Truths to preserve your pretty voice. Ciao.